What's up, y'all? Ben Vista, the Heartland Maker here. Today I'm going to show you this outdoor DIY project that I just completed at my house. Last year my dad and we made this patio with the pavers, the stoop, and we replaced a window with a patio door, and that worked great as a bare bones patio. I was able to be out here, have food, grill, all the fun things you want to do in a patio. But this year I wanted to define the space a little bit more. I wanted more seating. I wanted it to look better. So I made these planter boxes that actually match the shutters that my dad and I made last year with the original patio. So I made those to match, and then I wanted more seating, so I made these benches that connect between these two planter boxes, and then I just have a waterfall edge on that one. And I'm really happy with how it came out. It's a simple project to do. I just used 3 tools that I think almost everyone's gonna have: circular saw, a drill, and then a nail gun. The nail gun's not necessary. You could very easily use a hammer and nails, no problem. So if you don't have a nail gun, don't worry about that. But pretty simple project that I think turned out great. But first we have to do some landscaping by taking up the grass. The best way I've found to take up the grass is to use a step down edger to define the area that you will be taking up the grass, and then use that same step down edger to go in rows and strips of anywhere between 12 and 24 inches wide, depending on the effort that you want to do while taking up your grass. And then you want to break out your shovel and get the edge of the shovel just 2 inches deep in the ground probably, and then make it go parallel with the ground. So you're really not even digging up your grass, you're more just skimming along the bottom of it to remove it from the dirt. And it's one of the least labor intensive ways I've found to dig up your grass, but it still will get your heart rate up a bit. Once I got all the grass up and raked everything smooth, it was time to put down some weed barrier, some edging, and some mulch. Eventually I'll put some plants and other types of bushes here, but for now I just wanted to get to building. My dad and I used 6-inch tongue and groove car siding when we made the shutters. Luckily we bought way more than we needed, so I actually had enough to complete this project without having to go to the store and buy more lumber, which, if you've seen the price of lumber lately, you know that these easily could have become the most expensive planter boxes ever made. After all the panels were glued up, it was time to cut everything to size. I went with mitered edges on all of this, because with the tongue and groove car siding you get those channels that run continuously all around the edges. I cut everything to 18 inches and I was using 6-foot boards, so 6 feet, which is 72 inches, divided by 18 inches is 4, so that's going to give me all 4 sides of my planter boxes that I'm going to need, which ended up working perfectly because I have no leftover, so hopefully I don't need to do another project that involves tongue and groove car siding, because then I will need to go out and bite the bullet and pay a ridiculous price for lumber. After all the sides were cut to size, it was time to make the base of the planter box, which I used plywood. Plywood's not going to expand and contract as the seasons change, which in Iowa can sometimes seem like it's daily. So this is going to work out perfectly for me. Once we got all our pieces cut to size, it was time to start assembly of this project. And this is where a nail gun is really going to come in handy if you're just a solo person like I was making this project. Hammer and nails would work, but you'd probably need 2 people, one person to hold everything together, another person to nail it in. With just a nail gun, you could hold with one hand, nail with the other, and that worked out great for me. When I got done putting about 3 dozen nails in the planter box, it was time to make the inside support, because clearly I didn't have enough nails in there. So what these are going to do is these are going to go in the inside part of the planter box, and I'm going to be able to screw into them from the outside. Here they are going in, and then now you're going to see me starting to screw into them. And these planter boxes, I tell you what, you could hit them with a car and you'd probably do more damage to your car than the box. After I got done putting in about a dozen screws, which brought my total fastener count up to 48, it was time to flip the box over and then secure the bottom, which will help with torsional rigidity and make sure, because these are going to be planter boxes, that nothing falls through onto the ground, and this is going to keep everything nice and secure. Now, I still had to prime and paint them, but at this point in the project, I was really excited with how everything was looking, so I put it in its place to see how it was going to look, and once I did that to one, I got all three out there, and I got really excited. Now, I'm not going to bore you with watching paint dry, so I'm just going to throw in some pictures of there's the primer, and there's the paint, and now we can move on with the project. Starting with screwing on these galvanized steel L brackets. These are going to screw onto the side of the 4x4 cedar post that you see here, and then on the bottom of the planter box. And these 4x4 posts are what's going to hold up the string lights that I'm going to add later. I had every other material besides these 4x4 posts, and just to drive home the point again of how expensive lumber is these days, each one of these cost me $30. I think last year all three would have cost me $30, so it was expensive, but I think it was ultimately worth it because the string lights do look good connecting to my house, and I was just really happy with the overall project. Speaking of the string lights that connected to my house, I actually got the solar variety, so I don't have to plug them in or worry about them or anything. But to have the solar, we have to attach the solar panel to the top of the 4x4 post, and I'm just using an inch Forstner bit to attach the little clip that the solar panel slides onto. And once I got that done, it was time to put these in and hope they didn't fall on my head while I was trying to screw them into the base of the planter boxes, which, luckily, spoiler alert, they did not. With the post secured to the base, and now with an 8-foot tall thing sticking up in the air, and with Iowa winds, which are extreme sometimes, I needed something to make sure that this thing wasn't ever going to tip over. So I got 3 bags of rock and I started pouring them in there just to make sure it was a heavy, sturdy, strong base. And I mean, these things won't ever move, but hey, it's also not going to tip over. Once the planter boxes had all the rock in them and they were in their final resting spot, I could measure in between the 2 planter boxes that I was going to put the bench on, and then translate that measurement over to the boards that I was going to cut the boards, and then I could place them right on the planter boxes. The only problem I ran into on this part of the project was remembering I forgot to cut off the tongue, part of the tongue and groove on the top board, so I had to break out my Dremel to cut out a notch so my boards would fit in. Now, I know what you're thinking. At the beginning of the video, I told you this was a 3-tool project, and I'm now breaking out a 4th tool. Had I planned properly, it would still be a 3-tool project. You would just use your circular saw, and you'd rip off the tongue part of that top piece, like I did for the shutters, and you wouldn't have to Dremel out anything. You could just screw it right into it like you're seeing now without having to notch it out. Now, if you do like the notched out look, then you can add a Dremel to the tool list, but really this is still a 3-tool project if you plan properly, which I did not. After everything with the planter box part of the project was completed, I could work on stringing the lights from the 4x4 post to my house. Here I am just drilling a pilot hole into the 4x4 post that I'm going to put an eye bolt into. That eye bolt's going to connect to the string lights that I'm going to put on there. String lights are going to string across to my house where there's going to be a receiving eye bolt, and the string lights will be strung up. The very last step to this project was to put weed barrier on top of the rock, which you see there. That's to make sure the dirt of the planter box doesn't over time fall through the cracks of the rock, and then I have to keep filling it up with dirt. It's much easier just to put that weed barrier there, dump the dirt on top of it, plant your plants, and make everything look all pretty. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this week's video. If you did, please consider liking the video, and if you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. It would mean a lot, and I'll see y'all again in 2 weeks for the next project video. Yeah, a good dog. A good dog.